This video presupposes that human beings have libertarian free will, that is, the ability to choose intentionally without being compelled by external factors. This claim has been defended in the previous video. Under the premise that we have the power of free will, we can derive the following additional properties. Agency. The power of free will means that we have control over our choices and their effects. Thus, we have agency, the control to produce a particular effect. Self. Agency implies an agent. The agent is the cause of the voluntary act, which is myself or the I, and not something else. For example, when I perform an involuntary act like sneezing, we can say that something other than myself, say something in the environment, caused my body to sneeze. But when I perform a voluntary act, it is not something else but myself or the I who caused the act. The environment may be an influence, but the self has the final say. Consciousness. The power of free will allows us to make free, intentional choices. This implies informed choices, which implies awareness of information, or in other words, consciousness, the state of being aware of our surroundings. And thus, here is a list of properties that would necessarily follow from a thing with free will. Now, what about being physical? The issue with this question is that, what is the physical? We have a pretty clear idea when it comes to mid-size objects like tables and rocks, but from a philosophy standpoint, the concept of the physical is actually quite hard to grasp, and as such, there is no clear definition of it. If we had a clear definition, then it would be easy to determine if a thing is physical or not, that is, if an object fits inside the boundary of the set of the physical or outside of it. But as we don't have a clear definition, it is not clear where the boundary lies. However, we know some things about the physical. We have a good list of fundamental physical stuff that physical things are made of. For instance, matter, energy, forces, space, fields. So we can come up with arguments based on common features found in all physical stuff we know of. According to science, the behavior of everything that is physical is determined or maybe random. On the classical scale, physical things are generally agreed to be determined. This is why we come up with laws of physics which serve to describe and predict the general behavior of things that are strictly physical. On the quantum scale, it is possible that some physical behavior is random. Note that we do not in fact believe that random behavior is possible because it is incompatible with the principle of sufficient reason. But since it doesn't harm our current demonstration, it can stay in the argument. The behavior of a thing with free will is neither determined nor random. It is not determined because it is free, and it is not random because it is willed, that is, intentional or ordered towards a deliberate end. Therefore, a thing with free will is not physical. In summary, a thing with free will has the following properties: power of free will, agency, a self, consciousness, and is non-physical. And this is what we call the soul. Now, this discovery of the existence of souls has consequences on our metaphysics, the science of fundamental reality, and our ethics, the science of right conduct. Let's start with metaphysics. Before inquiring about souls, it seems that everything we knew about reality was physical, and thus it was reasonable to infer that reality is in fact merely physical. Now, with the discovery of non-physical souls, our model of reality must expand to include a non-physical realm. And this opens the doors to the possibility of other non-physical things like spirits, and a non-physical or supernatural world in which spirits reside, so to speak. It also distinguishes humans from everything else in the natural world. Here are again the properties of things with souls which were derived from the existence of free will. Since, as far as we know, there is no reason to posit the existence of these properties for things without free will and by extension without souls, by appealing to the principle of sufficient reason, or Occam's razor, we infer that things without souls do not have these properties. As it seems that only human beings have a free-willed behavior, we infer that only human beings have souls. And everything else in the natural world, non-living things, plants, and animals, do not. Note, it is unclear to us if animals have consciousness to some degree or if they merely appear to, similar to robots. Regardless, even if this property is present in animals, it does not follow that they have other properties associated to souls. Let's call things with souls subjects or persons, and things without souls objects or things that are not persons. When it comes to physical properties, physical subjects and objects are comparable because they are both made of the same fundamental physical stuff: matter, energy, forces, space, etc. But subjects have the additional non-physical properties and powers of the soul. Thus, metaphysically, subjects differ from objects not merely in degree, but in kind. When classifying things in a hierarchy according to their kind, subjects outclass objects due to them having additional fundamental properties and powers of the soul. Objects may outclass subjects in degree of physical properties. For example, trees may exceed humans in strength, size, and longevity, but not in kind. Thus, humans differ in kind from everything else in the natural world and outclass them. Now, onto consequences in ethics. Here is an argument for why subjects ought to be treated with more dignity than objects. Wisdom is the conformance of our beliefs and behavior to reality. In other words, we determine what is true and act accordingly. Metaphysically, subjects differ from objects in kind and outclass them, as shown previously. Therefore, it is wise to treat things according to their kind. Treat objects as objects and subjects as subjects. And it is wise to treat subjects as things that outclass objects. Treat humans as things that outclass everything else in the natural world. Note, it does not mean that we can treat animals poorly. It only means that they are not as valuable as humans, because animals are not persons. Here's an analogy. If the natural world is like a multiplayer online video game, then all non-human things in the world are like non-playable things in the game. They exist as part of the game and behave according to rules or command lines programmed in the game. On the other hand, human beings are like players. They interact with non-playable things and other players in the game, but they are distinct things from the programmed game itself. The game and its non-playable things serve as a backdrop for the players to interact in. Players may spend time to gaze at the built-in environment, but in the end, they must remember that these are merely things programmed in the game, and what matters is to interact with other players. Similarly, we may gaze at the wonders of the natural world. The land, plants, mountains, animals, stars. But in the end, we must remember that these are merely programmed objects that are outclassed in kind by subjects. And what matters is to interact with subjects, that is, to build relationships, personal or impersonal. And this emphasis on relationship building aligns with many religions. Like Christianity, whose focus is primarily to build and cultivate relationships with subjects. This includes the subjects of the natural world, humans, but also one subject of the supernatural world, the main subject of Christianity. In the next video, we will return to the principle of sufficient reason and explore it further on the metaphysical side. See you then, thanks for watching.